Hey guys, and welcome to Module 6, Lesson 3, Day 1. Today, I am going to teach you all about scaled bar graphs, and you are going to get to create scaled bar graphs. So that's our goal for today. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so yesterday, think about we did our tape diagram. And I have a little tape diagram for you right here. It's called Number of Fish in Sal's Pet Store. All right. So the first thing I notice is tank B is empty. There aren't any fish in tank B. So let's go ahead and draw 30 fish into tank B. I'm going to start by doing my rectangle. I'm going to split it up into 6 sections here because 6 groups of 5 is how I would get to 30. I see that the other tape diagrams around me are counting in groups of 5, so that's how many I need. Let's label our tapes 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Okay, so now my graph is complete. We can use this tape diagram to help us understand some information about our data. So let's start with how many fish are in tank C. So if I look over here at tank C, I see 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 fish in tank C. 5 groups of 5, 5 times 5, or 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 equals 25. Okay, now I can also combine my tapes to find out information about who has more than, how many more than another group. So this one's a little bit tricky, okay? I'm going to look at how many more fish are in just tank B compared to in tanks A and D. Okay, so tank B has 6 groups of 5. We filled that in together on the very first slide. So there's 30 fish in tank B. Tank A has 3 groups of 5, so there's 15. And tank D has 2 groups of 5, that's 10. But since I'm counting by 5s, I can easily say 3 plus 2 more groups of 5 is 5 groups of 5. Okay, so you wouldn't actually redraw this in your graph. I'm just doing this as a visual to show you that in my head, I combine 3 groups of 5 and 2 groups of 5, and that can help me solve it. So I wrote it as the distributive property, so you could see 3 groups of 5 plus 2 groups of 5 equals 5 groups of 5. But you can also just count 5 times 5. I have it both ways so you can see both strategies. 15 plus 10 equals 25. 5 times 5 equals 25. I get the same answer, just doing it 2 different ways using the same data. Now, how many more are in the combined tanks of how many more are in tank B compared to the combined tanks of A and D? There were 30. We want to know more than means minus. So 30 minus 25 from tanks A and D, and that equals 5 more. So I could also look and see before I had this stacked up, and it actually ended up that A and D equaled the same as C. I can just visually look one more tape unit right here, 1 unit of 5 more than what was here with the 25, and just see right there, mental math, that was 5. I don't have to do all of this extra work because I have a great picture in front of me to help me understand it. So today we are going to take our information.
We can take our vertical tape diagram and now we can turn it into a vertical graph. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to decide what my vertical graph is going to be divided into. So we used groups of 5 or units of 5 to do our tape diagram. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, and I'm going to mark each of these a line of 5. So now instead of having to build blocks, I'm just going to have to draw my line up to 5. All right, so 5, there's 5 more. Okay. And 35 at the top. Okay, so tank A, I have 5, 10, 15. That means I'm going to go up along this line right here, across at 15, and back down. So now I am showing that tank A is 15. Okay, and I'm just going to quickly color that in so you can see my bar a little bit better. Okay, over for tank B, I have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So I'm going to come over here in my line for tank B, and I'm going to make a line across at 30, and I'm going to fill in this bar right here. So I'm taking the individual units out of my tape diagram, and I'm turning it into one solid vertical bar. Okay, so tank C was 25. I see 25 over here. I'm going to come across my 25 line. I'm going to do down and around tank C. And there is my tank C bar, okay? So I'm just going to quickly color that in. Tank D has 10. So over here, I'm going to look and I see 10. And if you notice, the bars are kind of accidentally making the tape diagram, but then I'm just coloring it all in, just like that. Okay, and the last one is 5, 10, 15, 20. So I'm going to go up 5, 10, 15, 20, and then back down to fill in my bar. And this is why when we were doing our picture graphs with the circles and hearts the other day, I made a point to make sure that you guys were stacking them nicely and neatly, because now that we're turning them into bar graphs, it's very important to see that they need to be nice, neat, straight lines to get the right information. So now I can look at my bar graph, and I'm going to switch colors here. Oh, maybe I'm not going to switch colors. Sometimes my thing gets a little bit fussy, okay? But basically, I can see by looking at tank B that it goes all the way up to 30. So I go across and it's 30. So if you asked me how many fish were in tank D, I would look at the tank D down here. I would go up and I would look across and see that it lands at 10. What does this over here mean? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, what? 35 iguanas, 35 tanks, 35 giraffes. I don't know because I didn't label this. So now I need to make sure that I label, and what are we actually counting? What is in the tank? What is the total? Because we have our group, our tank, and we have our size, 5 in each tank. So this is our total, and we're going to call this over here fish, number of fish in the tank. So I'm just going to go ahead and type that. Fish in the tank. Okay. In fact, I'm going to change this. I'm going to make it number of fish in the tank just to make it even easier. And I like it to be pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and make one word per line, just so that way it's even easier for you guys to see. All right, so that is my label for my, this is called a vertical axis because it goes up and down. This is called a vertical axis. You don't need to really know that in 3rd grade, but it is important for you to kind of have that in your brain for when you go to 4th grade. This is the vertical axis because it goes up and down, and this is the horizontal. Okay, because remember the horizon, the sun sets on the horizon, it goes across the sky, okay?
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about horizontal and vertical later on in this chapter. So let's continue on. We filled out our vertical scale graph. Well, we did, but I can't find my next slide. What happened here? There we go. We filled out, oh my goodness, guys, this is killing me today with the technology. We filled out our vertical tape diagram and changed it into a scale graph. Now let's see if we can do the same thing by taking our data from a table and transferring that data to a fresh scale graph without looking at a tape diagram and just eyeballing it. Now we're actually going to take those numbers and we're going to fit them into our scale graph. I don't know why that's in there, but hi to Nadia and her sister. Let's try it with a totally different set of information. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the title of both my chart with our data in it and the title of our graph. And they should be the same because we want to make sure that the title of our graph matches information that we collected. So in essence, our survey that we are asking everybody is the title of all of the data that we're representing. So it's number of students in each class, okay? So the number of students in each class according to baking class, sports class, chorus class, and drama class. So these are the 4 different classes. And then over here, we see the number of students that are in each class. So we've got our groups and our size and then our total number of students. Isn't it crazy how it always comes back to TGS, guys? It always comes back to TGS. How many groups and size? Oh my gosh, it's nuts, isn't it? So, if I look at baking, I have 9 students, okay? It looks like they took my vertical axis, and remember I told you that's the one that goes up the side, up this way. It grows tall like a tree. Trees grow vertical like vines, okay, vertical vines, all right? And then they labeled each line 2. So I'm counting by 2s, but 9 is not an even number. So it's not going to fall on the line. It's going to fall in between my lines. So let me go ahead and grab my pen here. I'm going to use purple because it's a little bit prettier color, okay? And I'm going to just go ahead and draw a line because halfway between 8 and 9, 8 and 10 is 9. And there is my bar, and I'm just going to do this really quickly. Ooh, that's not very neat, is it? Right, so that's going to be good as it's going to get for time's sake. Now let's look at the next one, sports. 16 students are in the sports class. So I'm going to go up vertically, climb up my vertical line over to 16, and then I'm going to draw an imaginary line until I get to the sports column. And that's where I'm going to color in my sports graph. Okay, so all of the information that is in our vertical graph is also on our chart. It's just we're presenting it in a new way, so we'll be very quickly be able to see which class has the highest number of students, which class has the lowest, which 2 classes have the same amounts, all that kind of stuff. We can answer all sorts of questions, okay? All right, chorus class is 13. Again, 13 is an odd number. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. 13 is halfway. I'm going to make an imaginary line halfway in between 12 and 14. And that's where I'm going to draw the top of my chorus bar. Chorus bar. Any music nerds would get that, but you guys probably aren't old enough to understand bars of music and chorus yet. When you get to 5th grade and Miss Martin has you guys for chorus, you'll get that joke, okay? All right, and then last but not least, number 18, drama. Drama, 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 all the way up to 18. I'm drawing an imaginary line across until I get to my drama column, and that's where I'm going to cap the top of it. I'm not going to go above it. I'm not going to go a little bit below it. I'm going to go right across that line, and I'm going to neatly, as close as I can, because remember, guys, mathematicians, not artists right now, okay, as good as I can. So I go ahead and I just fill that in. So now I can take a look at baking. I had 9 students in the baking class. I had 16 students in my sports class. I have 13 students in my chorus class. And I have 18 students in my drama class. So now using a bar graph is a nice way of keeping track of information when you don't have drastic jumps between your numbers. So the lowest on my list is 9 and the highest is 18. So my numbers are pretty close to each other. So counting by 2s is a really reasonable way of doing it. But what if
my lowest was 9 and my highest was 81. Would counting by 2 still be the best way to represent my information? Or would I have such a giant gap on my bar graph that it would be really hard to number my vertical axis? Okay, so that's something I want you to keep in the back of your head. You don't need to do that today, but I do want you to keep that in the back of your mind, that the numbers that you choose for your vertical axis, how you climb this vertical line over here and number these, really has a big important relationship to the data that's right here. Okay, so just food for thought, keep that in your brain because we are going to talk about that later on in this chapter.
Okie dokie. So I am ready to take the data that we just completed and answer some questions about it. If my side here wants to wake up. Wake up! There we go. Okay, what is the value of each square in the bar graph? Okay, so when we look at our scale graph here, or our bar graph, what is each square in the background worth? Okay, so if I look at my label for my vertical axis over here, I see 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. We're counting by 2s, so each square is worth 2. Okay, 2 students. It says over here, my label is number of students. So this is worth 2 students. This is worth 4 students, 6 students, 8 students, 10 students, all the way up to 20 students is the most that I could have in any class because that's how far my bar graph goes. Write a number sentence to find how many total students are enrolled. How can I figure out how many students are in baking and sports and chorus and drama? And means add. When we combine, we're putting a bunch of parts together to make one big whole. So baking plus sports plus chorus plus drama equals the total number of students in each class or the total number of students on our graph. So we've got 9 plus 16 plus 13 plus 18, and that gives us 56. And if you don't believe me, you can do the math for yourself, but trust me, it's 56. Okay, last question. How many fewer students are in sports than in chorus and baking combined? Write a number sentence to show your work, or excuse me, to show your thinking. Okay, first of all, what does that say? How many fewer students are in sports? So fewer means less than, so I'm going to be doing some subtracting, than in chorus and baking combined. Oh, goodness. Okay, so before I can find out anything about the sports and do my subtracting part, I need to combine chorus and baking. So chorus has 13 and baking has 9. So 13 and 9, that's 22. So 22 students in those 2 classes combined, okay? How many students are in sports? So sports has 16. So I am going to say 22 minus 16, and that thing better go away because it's blocking my work. Go away. Thank you. 22 minus 16 equals 6 students. So there are 6 more students in baking and chorus combined than in just the sports class. Okay. All right. So yesterday and the day before that, or last week, whatever, I can't even keep track of the days anymore. Last week when we were doing tape diagrams, okay, we learned that we could take a horizontal tape diagram and we could turn it vertically. And the information that was represented stayed the same. I just changed the direction it was going. Instead of going across the horizon, it was going up the columns, the vertical, okay? So what do you think about my vertical scale graph? Is this the only way that I can do a scale graph? If I can turn a tape diagram, why can't I turn a scale graph? I can. Okay, so I just took my information and I rotated it Okay, I actually rotated it and flipped it upside down just to make my bar graph look that much more interesting. And but there's a problem. There's some information missing. I have my scales filled in. It looks beautiful, all these nice purple horizontal rows, but I don't know what they stand for because when I changed my information, the direction it was going in, I also need to change the label. So first thing I need to do is put a title on it. And title doesn't change because the information didn't change. My survey is still the same. I asked the question, the number of students in each class. So that's still my title. But now, before I had numbers going up on this side, this time I'm not going to put numbers. This is where I'm going to put the classes. Because if you remember correctly, I had a baking class and I had a drama class and I had a sports class and I had chorus, I think is the last class. Let's find out. Yep, drama, chorus, sports, and baking. So that's what label goes over here on my vertical axis. Now I'm putting that climbing up this vertical line over here. So what needs to go down here at the bottom? Okay. What number, what's missing? What information is missing? I know the sports, but what don't I know? How many students are in each of those classes? Okay. So that is where I put my number of students. So I'm still counting by 2. I did not change my scale. I didn't change the number of students in any of my classes. I didn't change any of the data. I just changed the direction of my graph. I took a vertical graph and I rotated it. And when I rotated my vertical graph to a horizontal graph, I also had to flip flop my data, my labels, I mean, to make sure that my labels are consistent and they match the information I'm measuring. It wouldn't make sense to have the numbers over here because the numbers wouldn't line up with what I'm trying to make them say. And it wouldn't make sense to have the baking and chorus and drama down here because again that doesn't line up with what the information is showing. So that's it. It's your turn, guys. I want you to go back to your Google slide template that you started out with in our Google Classroom. Excuse me. You're going to click on box number 2 and you are going to go to formative and you're going to try scale graphs on your own. Okay. And when you feel like you understand this, when you feel like you know how to convert a tape diagram to a scale graph, then you are going to you're going to show me what you know by completing the exit ticket informative. Okay. So if you have questions, I'm here. Nobody has been coming to my office hours. It's the longest, most boring hour of my life every afternoon. So please, even if you don't have questions for me, just come and say hi because I'm lonely and my kids are driving me crazy. So please come and say hi to me 1 to 2 o'clock. I'll be here just hanging out, waiting for you, even though it's beautiful and sunny. And I want to get a suntan, but it's still school. I still got to be in school. So do you. Okay. So come bother me from 1 to 2. I love you guys.